I'm Lisa Moan and I'm a GAPS practitioner, a nutritionist and a food scientist. And today I'm going to show you how to make sauerkraut juice. So as you might imagine, it's the juice that you get at the top of the sauerkraut bottle, so just the water part of it. When you're doing the GAPS protocol, so that's the gut healing protocol, you start off just having the sauerkraut juice, so you don't even progress to the full sauerkraut until you're into the diet a little bit, and that's because that's the most healing for your digestive system. So we're going to make that today. We've got an organic cabbage here. It's very important when you're fermenting foods to use organic foods because you want the wild fermentation, so you want the natural microflora of the vegetables to assist in the fermentation, and you also want the maximum nutrients. So something like cabbage, if you buy it organic, it has much higher levels of vitamin C than a non-organic cabbage. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take off the very dirty outer leaves of the cabbage. We'll get rid of those. We don't want to wash the cabbage at all. And then we're going to chop it up in the Thermomix. So if you don't have a Thermomix, don't worry about that. You can use a normal food processor, you can use a Vitamix, or you can do it by hand. If you are doing it by hand, just remember the more finely you chop it up, the quicker the fermentation. So you want the maximum surface area of the cabbage. So just do it in a few goes in the Thermomix. And with cabbage juice or sauerkraut juice, these are really great for reflux and heartburn. So if you suffer from reflux or heartburn, try a glass of sauerkraut juice every morning and you'll be amazed at how well that works. So we'll just mix this up a bit. Just give that a little move around. As you can see, we've got a very, very fine particle size there. It's very finely chopped up. So I'll put that into a big bowl because we're going to be adding salt to this in a minute and mixing the salt through. So we want a big bowl so we don't spill much. I'll just do this in sections. I think I haven't cut up my cabbage small enough. Just chop that a bit smaller before we put it in. And if you have a baby with reflux and you don't want to give them sauerkraut juice because of the salt, you can actually just juice the cabbage and that will work too. So you go through this process and chop it up finely until you've gone through the whole cabbage. I'll finish chopping it up in a little while. And then we want to add some natural Celtic sea salt. So you want the unrefined salt. You don't want to buy Saxa or any of those refined salts because all the minerals have been stripped out of that. So we need 6 tablespoons of the sea salt for 1 head of cabbage. And as I say, I'm going to put in the other half of my cabbage later. And then you mix it around so that the salt has covered the cabbage really, really well. And if you remember back to science at high school, an osmosis, so the salt will draw the water out of the cabbage. So once the salt is in, we want to let that sit for at least 20 minutes, even longer if you have time. If you haven't chopped it as finely as I've chopped it today, you will want to keep mashing it like this, and that will really speed down the breakdown of the cell walls in the cabbage and speed up the process. But because mine's nice and fine, I'm just going to leave it to sit like that. So we've left our cabbage and salt now for just over an hour, And you can see that the liquid has come out of the cabbage, the salt has drawn out the liquid, and it's all mushy and limp. So what we do now is we take these jars, which I've sterilised. So you sterilise jars by popping them in the oven at about 180 degrees for about 15 or 20 minutes. You obviously have to use metal lids because you can't put a plastic lid in the oven. And then we just fill up the jars about a third of the way with the cabbage mixture. Try and not get any cabbage on the sides of the jars, because if you do, then that can contribute to mould. So just push down any little bits like that. So it's about a third full. Then you fill it up to the top with filtered water, and it can wash away any little bits of cabbages that have crept up. I just have a billy filter, so it's just a carbon filter, and that takes the chlorine out of the water. So you really don't want any chlorine in your water when you're fermenting, because that will kill the bacteria that you're trying to develop. You pop the lid on nice and tight. There's some floating, but they'll probably sink over time. And then you just take the jar and pop it into a cupboard. So you want a cold, dark place. So I've cleared a shelf in my pantry here. And I'll just pop it in there for about 10 days to 2 weeks. If you know you have histamine issues, so if you know when you eat certain foods that are high in histamine, you get hives and a reaction, you can actually ferment your sauerkraut juice for about 4 months, and the longer you ferment it, the less histamines there will be. So I'll just now go through the same process with all of these jars. I'll just fill them up a third, top them up with water, and pop them in the cupboard. And then in about 2 weeks' time, you can just drink the juice straight off the top, have a little glass every morning, and that's be a real probiotic boost, really help your gut, really help the bacteria in your gut develop diversity and healthy bacteria. And yeah, so that's sauerkraut juice. Thank you.